So hi everyone, thanks for joining us this evening again. Happy to see you all here. It's fantastic to see so many people who have signed up for this evening. And I'm just happy to welcome Olga to speak to this evening. Welcome, Olga.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Thanks for joining us. Olga, just tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background, basically?
Oh, hi, Stefan, once again, and thanks everyone for coming. Well, basically, my background is, starting from the past, I studied mathematical modeling in economics at the university, and I started to write a PhD thesis, but I did not finish it yet. Maybe I will do sometime later, hopefully.
Yeah, probably you have been too busy, right?
Yeah. Then I have been working in finance in an investment bank. I was been in charge of building, those models predicting the probability of default of organizations and something like that. Ironically, my models were predicting quite precisely, but that was in the time of financial crisis of 2008. And right according to my model, the bank gone bankrupt and I got fired after that.
Okay.
And that's how I moved from the industry of finance towards the AI, and I joined Yandex, which is one of the biggest internet companies in Europe. And I joined the team of Yandex Search. And for the past 10 years, I've been working there, and I've been in charge for providing all the products of Yandex with labeled data for training the models and validating their quality. And
Yandex is a little bit like Google for everyone who doesn't know that, right? It has a little bit the same structure and such.
yeah, sometimes it is called like the Silicon Valley of Russia because it has pretty much everything which you can imagine. It started as a search and it beats Google on the local market and an open competition in terms of the market share. Then it has the ride-sharing taxi company, which actually fought over Uber and acquired its business in Russia and several neighboring markets. It has lots of other products like the voice assistant, e-commerce marketplace, and many, many others. But what unites them all is that they all are powered by the machine learning, obviously, and that's why they all require some training data to be labeled for them. That's why I kind of participated in the development of pretty much all the products of that company. And right now we are in the process of spinning off Yandex to become an independent crowdsourcing platform, which allows different companies to use our infrastructure for the data labeling for their needs.
Just let me come back. So you started at Yandex, to work at Yandex. What role actually at Yandex?
Well, I'm the head of like currently I'm the CEO of Toloka crowdsourcing platform.
Oh, okay.
Previously, the role was called like the head of the department of the crowdsourcing. It was just a pure infrastructure for the Yandex, yes. And during my path at Yandex, I actually started initially the whole data labeling thing at Yandex. It started also like 10 years ago when the first technologies of machine learning started to be using at search, because you needed human labels to train the algorithms of ranking the results and the search results. And of course, it started with smaller scale. It was like several in-house people, we call them assessors, who were just manually labeling some amounts of data. But then this organization has been growing and growing and growing. And so this organization was kind of an, I would call it, I don't know, in-house outsource. So any engineer would come to us asking, please label me this data set. And we had a team of managers who organized all this process and brought back to the engineers just the finally labeled data set. But at some moment, we found ourselves, too busy with just administrating all that stuff, because when we reached several thousands of these in-house assessors, suddenly you understand that you stop thinking about like what is really important about the machine learning and something, and you start thinking only about administrative questions of how to manage those thousands of people. And it was so hard and ineffective that later we understood that the next step of the evolution should be the open crowdsourcing platform, which we established in 2014, I would say, in the end of 2014. And what is important is that this switch from like in-house fully managed service towards an open do-it-yourself crowdsourcing platform brought us not only the increase of effectiveness of the whole process, but what is more important, the very important switch in an engineering culture. Because previously, the engineers at Yandex were like tending to have this attitude, I don't know, consumeristic attitude towards the data labeling, like, oh, I'm such a genius engineer, I don't want to spend my time on data labeling, just bring me the data set and I'll do something about it. And then when we turned into the do-it-yourself model, when we are providing the infrastructure where any engineer can set up all the processes for data labeling by him or by herself, it brought a totally different approach towards the process, because people started to care about the data labeling as an integral part of their product, actually, and started to invest much more into making it more efficient and more creative. And this is, I think, one of the biggest reasons of the growth of the number of machine learning powered products of Yandex within the years, which laid in the fact that we have opened this crowdsourcing infrastructure available for everyone.
Cool. Let's say a few organizational questions. We come back to you in a second, Olga. Welcome again for everyone who has just joined. Happy to have you all here. A few organizational things you just need to know. If you look to the navigation bar here inside of the system, you will see there's a Q&A section, or F&A if it's in German. You can always ask your questions during the presentation. We'll always happy to answer it, and we will always take care that it will be answered. So Olga will always just focus on what you want to say, has to say. I will have a look, but everyone gets an answer. So happy to have you here. And also you might have seen that we have more people in the panel, just maybe wondering who else is there. Welcome Ekaterina, which is also in the team of Olga, and Rosmiana, who will join us later. Hi, Rosmiana. Okay. And you're mute. Don't forget that you have to unmute you afterwards.
Thanks for the note.
Okay. Okay. So I think you will come back in later on during the presentation. So I found that quite interesting when you said the change in the engineering culture. That's interesting. So data labeling is sometimes, from my perspective, when I look at the companies I talk to, often undervalued, not really understood what's the purpose of it, and how important it really is. Looking at the huge experience and expertise you have working, so originally starting at Yandex, now spinning off her own company with Toloka, which is just awesome. So you basically serve all ranges of data, right? It's video, audio, whatever, right?
Yeah, it's a universal platform. Yeah.
Cool. So we probably hear something about different types as well during the presentation.
Yeah, hopefully we have will show different use cases illustrating like the large variety of options which the crowdsourcing allows to use for the data.
Okay, fantastic. I think it's time to give you the floor. I think we learned a little bit about you. It was quite interesting to see the evolution of everything. I think a lot of people experience similar things in companies at the moment, as we just started to learn how we do the things with AI. And now it's your time. Happy to have you here, Olga.
Thank you so much. I'll start sharing my screen. Yeah, please let me know. everything's fine. You see that, right? Okay.
So
thanks once again.
Sorry,
Yeah.
before I interrupt you for a second, I forgot because I would like to have you all just answer 2 questions for us, which helps a little bit more to be focused during the presentation. Sorry for just mentioning it now. It's really about the profession, and it's a little bit about your experience, which helps us a little bit more to understand what kind of interests you might have. Also, feel free if you're just novice to the field, don't worry about that. There's no silly question. Yes, it's always good to ask something. So yeah, that's cool. It's filling up pretty fast. That's awesome. Let's wait a second. Most of people already have answered. That's cool. So we will be ready in a second. I think there's a clear trend. That's cool stuff here for me. I see the poll live. I see the data coming in. Okay, so it looks like mostly everyone is just answering, which is just awesome. So looking at the profession first, so data science is about 28%, software engineering, software architect together 23%. We have even some project or product managers, 13%, consultants, 15%, business and other, 15% other. This is always the thing I just wanted to say. Hey, I'm missing other people with 15%. What's your profession? You can write in the chat if you like. That would be awesome just to see what you're in. So we have a good mix with people who are just working in the space, right? From software engineering or data science part, but also the other side. So I think we will probably cover both sides. Don't worry. So it will be not too technical, but technical some part, and we will get a good understanding of how can you use everything. So what is your experience? Machine learning. So novice are 27%, which is also just good to see. Advanced, let's see the numbers. Advanced 46%. So we have quite experienced group of people, and some experts 27%. So let's take the people who are just new to the field with us on the journey. Don't forget that we have really experienced people, so who would probably like to dig deeper into the subject. Sorry, Olga, now it's your turn.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, very interesting to learn about the audience. Should I close this window?
Yeah, you can close it.
How do I do this? Okay. So once again, thanks very much for everyone for coming. Today, we'd like to speak about indeed one of the pillars of the AI, which for the long time has been, to my mind, seriously underinvested and underestimated in terms of the serious research and the serious attention from the professionals in the machine learning, which is the data labeling. Indeed, if we speak about the AI industry, we may say that it stands on 3 major pillars. These are algorithms, hardware, and the training data. And while the first 2 have already become the commodities, the last one is still often a bottleneck for the production and creating of AI products. Thanks to Stefan, we have already talked a little bit about my background. So just a quick reminder that I'm the CEO of the crowdsourcing platform Toloka.ai. And I have quite a huge experience in setting up different processes of data labeling while I have been working at Yandex. And once again, we have mentioned that Yandex is sometimes called like the Silicon Valley of Russia because it provides a whole variety of different products, starting with the search. It has the self-driving cars project, and the self-driving cars are now riding in the streets of Israel, US, and Russia already, and there is a voice assistant and many, many other products. And what unites them is that they all have machine learning inside. And actually, we're proud to say that if you scratch literally any product of Yandex inside, you would find Toloka, because all of them in this or that way are using the platform for data labeling. Because indeed, if you take a look at any production industrial machine learning pipeline, you would find out that there is the human label data needed at every step. At first, you would need human label data to train your model, then you would need it to validate the quality of this model. Then after having deployed it into production, you would need to constantly control how it actually works in real world. And then after obtaining new data from the real world, you would need to retrain the model and label additional data which is occurring. And this is, in my opinion, a great irony of the modern world. Everybody is speaking about artificial intelligence, but not everyone understands probably to how a great extent this artificial intelligence actually relies on people who do this labeling. And Toloka, the name of the platform, the word itself may sound a little bit unusual, but we have chosen this name because it is actually an ancient word meaning the ancient Slavic tradition when people used to gather together in order to perform some job which could not be done separately by separate people, for example, do the harvesting or build the road to the village or something like that. And we thought that it is a great allegory for the modern world, what now it is called the crowdsourcing, when people, lots of different people join together. Every separate person creates makes the smallest effort, but their efforts taken together lead to the solution of some high level and big tasks. So Toloka is an open platform where any person from any country of the world can register as a performer, and we call our performers Talokers. And as well, any company or any individual researcher can register as a requester and set up the tasks. And so the two sides meet on the platform, and Talokers choose the tasks which are interesting to them and perform them. And mainly, of course, our tasks are specified to different applications of the machine learning. As I have mentioned, Toloka initially started inside Yandex as being an infrastructural service to provide the data labeling on an industrial scale for many products of Yandex. It had been launched in the end of 2014, and since that it has been growing constantly. Like you can see the numbers both in terms of the projects, meaning the different task types and different actually products for which it is being used, and also in terms of the number of performers who are active on the platform. Like recently we have closed the year 2020 with more than 4 million people who actually performed some tasks on the platform and earned some money there. Right now we have, and we are targeting to have a truly global community of performers. Right now we have about more than 100 countries and people from different countries speaking different languages. For this year, 2021, we aim to reach 190 countries to have a truly global coverage of our crowd. And already we have more than 9 million people registered on the platform, which I would say makes Toloka one of the biggest crowdsourcing platforms in the world.
Olga, just looking back at your slide, just one question. That was interesting because, can you just go back one slide?
Yeah, please.
This is interesting. So many languages. So this is basically, if you think about data labeling, text, for example, you can actually cover both languages as well, right?
Yeah, and that's actually one of the popular requests among the requesters, especially if we speak about global companies. It's quite a common use case when you need the same type of data labeled in several languages at the same time. So, and we have this feature in Toloka when you can set up the project on one language and then multiply it to different languages at the same time. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So right now, every day on our platform, there are more than 40,000 people who actually perform a task and get paid for it, like 40,000 every day. This is quite an impressive number. And these people provide and produce more than 15 million labels every day. Then those millions of labels attribute to more than 600 different projects which are active on the platform every day. And the performers may use different devices to perform the tasks. These can be mobile devices, we have both an iOS and Android applications, or desktop application. And yeah, as I mentioned, we have started as being a small team acting as an infrastructure for the search. Then we have grown to become the major infrastructure for the whole product, for the whole Yandex and all the products which need data labeling. And we are aiming to become the worldwide infrastructure for the whole AI industry everywhere, because we see that the tool, which has proven its effectiveness on the smaller scale, it actually can be as well used not only by Yandex, but by other requesters all over the world. I would like to show several use cases to illustrate what actually the data labeling means. And then we will have the real-time demonstration of how it actually works for the requester, thanks to our engineer, Rosmi. So in general, I've mentioned that every day we have more than 600 different types of projects, and I roughly tried to cluster them into some groups. I have chosen such a classification. These are some groups of tasks related to gathering of content, some groups of tasks related to data annotation, and related to business decision making. So if we speak about content gathering, just to illustrate you what are the tasks which there can be. For example, one of the tasks which is quite popular among our requesters is collecting the voice recordings. For example, you are setting up the voice assistant and you need to feed it with lots of recordings of people speaking, pronouncing the activation phrase. And you would need many people speaking different voices with different accents in different environments and etc. So how to do this using the crowdsourcing, it's quite easy. At first you set up the task, which is very small and easy, like please record a phrase, say hey Alisa. Then you set up the second task for another performers, like please listen to the recorded phrase and say whether it has been pronounced correctly or not. And if it has been done pronounced correctly, then the initial task is accepted and the requester gets the final audio recording, and you can send such a task in the same way simultaneously to thousands of people, and within a very short time you will collect a really huge data set of voice recordings. The other example is very interesting and quite untrivial. We call it spatial crowdsourcing, which is actually the crowdsourcing done offline, when people are asked to come to a certain location and perform some small action like offline. For example, one of the most common cases is to come, for example, to a certain organization or business and take a photo of its working hours, or verify that it actually is open, or verify that it has, I don't know, the accessibility for handicapped people or something else. These are the examples of the photos which are taken by these tasks. Quite often, actually, this is the only source of information about the organization if we speak about really small businesses which even do not have an online website or something. So the only way to find out that it actually exists and it works, it's really literally go there and take a look.
What I find interesting about what you're saying is that we're not talking about digital products anymore. Yes, it's really physical, so going outside in the world, and that this is data labeling of some sort as well. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it kind of ruins the border between online and offline.
Yeah.
The same example is quite often quite popular among requesters is verification of prices and goods when people are asked to come inside the shop, for example, and verify that your product is being sold for the needed price or something like that. This is how it actually looks from the side of the performer. There is the screencast of the mobile app when the performer sees lots of tasks available and he or she finds the appropriate task near himself. And then the task is actually to come to a location and take a photo, and the system automatically verifies the location of the person and would not allow you to perform the task if you are too far away from the needed location.
Fascinating.
Then this is a cool example. One of the startups, being a requester at Toloka, they are creating the application for online trying on the shoes. And to make this work, they needed to collect lots of videos of different feet of different people. And they also had been using Toloka to collect this data set. But coming back from offline to online, of course, we have much more different use cases in like, traditional online cases. These are, for example, searching for some objects in the internet or verifying the prices of the objects in the online. Because even though there are many tools and automated crawlers which allow you to automatically parse, for example, the prices for the goods, we all know that quite often the sites themselves, they would return to the robot some different information rather than that will show to a real person. So quite often the only way to see what actual user really sees is to ask real people to go to the site and see to ask what they really see there. Coming to more technological implementations of data labeling, one of my favorite trends that we are observing right now is the increase of the number of tasks related to semantic search on Toloka. And for example, quite an often task of facts extraction when people are asked to look at a piece of text and extract some facts like the date of birth or I don't know, number of films nominated to Oscar or something like that. And well, yes, I think this audience would understand that later this data is being used for training some models for semantic search.
That's interesting also because this is one of the use cases we personally have as a company. So this is so you're extracting data, enriching data sets, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
For enriching data sets, for validating the quality of your existing models, and etc. Yeah. Of course, the classical set of use cases related to the machine learning are different types of classifications and data annotations. And we would see during the real-time demo how it actually works. But the idea is just the same. There are simple and small tasks, and while sending these tasks simultaneously to thousands of people, you would be able to, for example, classify 1,000 photos within 15 minutes or something like that. Then there is a whole bunch of tasks related to audio transcription, where people ask to listen to this short audio and then type what they have heard. Some tasks related to NLP related tasks and named entity recognition tasks and etc. Remembering that we have quite an international crowd, it's quite an interesting task of validating the quality of auto translation when people are asked to look at different options of translating from one language to another, and they vote for the best results, and this is being used to build the metrics of the quality of the auto translation services. And of course,
translation, sorry if I interrupt you again. Just go back for a second. This is a more sophisticated task, right? So to compare sentences with each other. So this is interesting because I think most people know what kind of data labeling if it talk about that for reCAPTCHA fields like finding traffic signs and such stuff. So this is also possible that you can actually crowdsource more sophisticated tasks.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. And that's actually where I believe the whole industry is going. The further we go, the more sophisticated tasks there would be, because all the trivial tasks will be done automatically. And there are more and more tasks which require certain expertise in the certain field. And yeah, this is a good example of that, because you need to know on a good level several languages, right, to be able to perform this task.
It's also quite interesting to understand how you deal with quality issues. How do you control that? But I think you come to that later on.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, we'll pass through that. Yeah. Some other quite an often used case is the moderation. For example, moderation of the user content. For example, you are collecting the reviews on the organization of something, and you need to moderate and verify that there is no, I don't know, advertisement or something else. And it is quite a standard task for the crowdsourcing and for the data labeling. And the usual approach is called the human in the loop here, because usually when we deal with the moderation tasks, we have to deal with large scales and unpredicted scales of the objects to be moderated. That's why usually at first there is some machine learning based model which processes, I don't know, 90% of the cases automatically, but then when there are hard cases and the model returns need a low confidence level, then these tasks are being sent to the crowd. And grace to the fact that there are so many people available at every moment of time to perform this task, it is being done really very fast with a very low latency of several minutes to pass the whole loop, actually. Of course, mentioning that Toloka is a universal platform which covers actually all the spheres of implementation of AI. There are lots of use cases related to computer vision as well. One of the cases which I like, it's quite untrivial. Some of the requesters use the crowd to collect the highlights on the video. Like you have this video recording and you need to highlight the point when something interesting happens, and for example write a comment there. And people also used to crowdsource it on the platform. And finally, there's coming like away from AI, there's a bunch of tasks related to product decision making. One of the most popular of them being the side-by-side tasks, when you have two objects to show the person and ask a person which one, the left or the right, do they like better. And quite often, if it's hard to formulate the strict question, but it's quite easy to ask a person, just vote for the left or for the right. And if you collect like hundreds or thousands of these votes, you can get a really impactful set of insights on what people really like. And this is how they compare. And finally, actually, after having collected those votes, you can rank the objects according to those number of votes. And this is how they rank, for example, I don't know, backgrounds, logos, or design versions of the interfaces, and etc. Quite a universal tool for such more, I would say, subjective evaluation. So this is the approach which allows you to digitalize subjective opinion on some object. Yeah.
It's interesting because we are just moving more into kind of market research thing, right?
Yeah, that's because the crowdsourcing is actually, when you know how to cook it, you can apply it towards very, very different spheres, indeed. Wow. And here we come to the most interesting question related to that, actually, because you have seen different task types, and you can see that actually, yes, they are quite small, but I would not call them too trivial. Yeah, it's not something like define whether it is black or white. It is something that requires some thinking and some efforts from the people. And usually it's never a problem to collect, I don't know, 100 of labels of something. I can do it myself on an Excel file. It's not a problem. But when you think about the need of collecting thousands of or millions of such labels with a constant and predictable quality, then it turns into a purely engineering and actually mathematical task. And for the past, like all of our previous 10 years of experience, we have been searching and trying to find the optimal solution for that particular task, how to maintain quality on a large scale. And we finally came up with the understanding that the optimal architecture is the architecture of the smart marketplace, where you have requesters who have lots of rich tools to control the quality. We will speak about them and show them on the demo on the one side. On the other side, you have Talokers who can, in their turn, rate requesters and give the feedback about the quality of the task. Because sometimes, this is also quite an often use case, some requesters may put the task to the crowd, send it to the crowd, write some trashy instruction, which is totally unclear, and then collect trashy results and say, okay, that doesn't work. Those people are so stupid, they just don't understand anything. But here, using this scheme of the feedback, you can actually see that, okay, you have written the guideline here, and here there are 1,000 people who did not understand your guideline. So probably the problem is not in those 1,000 people, but the problem is in your guideline. And using this feedback, you can quite fast, update the system towards making it comfortable for both sides. And of course, there is a platform itself, which due to the fact that it is in the middle of the two sides, it can actually leverage the quality by collecting some statistics on the behavior of the users on the platform and etc. And it has the smart tools of ranking the tasks for performers and optimal matching between experts and tasks and predicting the expected quality that a certain Toloka will show on the certain task and etc. This is something which is only possible when you have a big and open platform where there are lots of tasks and lots of performers. And what I like the most about actually all the crowdsourcing is that the key thing here is managing the process, but not the people. You need to build up such a pipeline which would be resistant to mistakes of single people rather than to rely on the skills of a particular performer. And even like you mentioned, that for some use cases really require expertise, for example, good knowledge of language or something else, but that actually does not matter. Even if you need experts, you need to treat them as, in a standard way, roughly speaking, as unreliable agent. And if you think about the system in such a way, you would focus on creating a stable and scalable process and pipeline. And then if you manage to do that, it's great if you, for certain cases, you would need people with higher expertise. For certain cases, you would not. But finally, you would come with stable and predictable quality anyway. And the good reason that actually the good news is that there are several steps that you should pass to. And if you do all these steps, you can be sure that actually the outcome would be of a good quality. The first part would be selecting the performers and targeting them according to the needed regions or age or skill or something else. Secondly, you would need to set up some settings for training and motivation of people. It's actually quite interesting because the approach of training Talokers is quite similar to the approach of machine learning in general. You show a bunch of examples, of pre-labeled examples to the person, and the person understands the logic of your tasks. And then you validate how he or she understood this logic using the examination pool. And then those who have passed this exam are already trained performers ready to provide you with production labels. And of course, there are some tools for motivating people try harder. If you set up this system when people get paid more if they show better quality, leads to the optimal, motivation both for the requesters and the Tolokers. Then you would set up certain quality control tools. All the tools are already inside the platform. So for the requester, it's more about pressing the buttons in the interface rather than thinking and having to invent something by himself. There are some system level tools like finding the robots and cheaters on the platform or controlling some automated behavior. And there are also tasks and controls related to specific project, like injecting some control tasks or asking several people at the same time, monitoring their consistency, and etc. And finally, once the labels have been collected, there are tools for aggregating these labels already inside the platform. So you have collected certain number of labels, then for example, 3 votes per each object, and then you aggregate them in a smart way, taking into account the individual expertise of every certain Toloka and to how much extent we can rely on his or her opinion. And then you finally you come up with quite a clean data set, even if at the beginning, not all the people who participated in data labeling were ideally clear and ideally accurate. But after having passed all these steps, you would come up with a clean data set. And in general, the approach that we are promoting is actually treating the data labeling task not as the use case of people management, but rather a use case of a purely engineering task. When you have like literally millions of people and you require minimal efforts from them, each one of persons, they can spend, I don't know, several minutes or several hours on the platform, but then you deal with their collective wisdom as with, I would say, a specific computing cluster, and you set up the automated pipelines using the API. You set up the automated pipelines for processing this data labeling to come up with like industrial production of data labeling on a large scale. And here I would be happy to pass the microphone to my colleague Rosmi, who is our crowd solutions architect, and she's a professional in like setting up the projects on Toloka to show how it actually looks like for the requesters, and hopefully we'll be able to collect some data within these 10 minutes on the real time.
Sure. Well, hello. Hi again, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. It's so nice to see that there are so many people interested in crowdsourcing. So in the next 10 minutes, I will attempt to show you a short demo on how you can do image classification task from scratch and get the results. So imagine you want to train a model, computer vision model, to differentiate cats from dogs. And you have a set of data, it's a list of images of cats and dogs, and you want to get them labeled. So I will start sharing my screen here. I hope it works. So imagine your data set sort of, looks like this. You have list of URL and you have some like control answers to control quality later on. So I will open one link and so it's an image like that. So that's your data set. And you want to create a task that looks like this. Basically, you have an image and you want the performer to select between a cat, a dog, or something else like this one. That's a lion. We want the performer to select that as something else or others. So how do we do that? I will move to Toloka's interface. So this is an interface on creating a project. We have a rich list of templates that you can select from, actually, with all the data types that we have: text, audio, image, and so on. But for the purpose of this demo, I will show you something from scratch. So I will start with naming my project. Is it a cat or a dog? And the description performer will be decide what is in the picture. Save this section. And to create interface in Toloka, there's an option to use HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, but we also have a tool that is based on JSON, and it's really super simple to use. So I will show you how it looks like. I'm barely typing things and things are already appearing on the screen. So I will show that I want image. I want to show an image. So I scroll and I find image. Then I will specify that the data source is a data input that I call image. Then I want to get radio button as the option. That will be a data output that I call result. And I will select the options. There will be 3 options there. I will label them each. Cat. Value is a cat. I will label it dog. Value is dog. For the last one, I want to send a data that is called others, and I want to label it both, unclear, something other than cat or a dog. So I can preview that it looks like that, and I want to validate that this is a required field. I'll just give people a hint that they need to select an answer. Select an answer. And I may want to add a question to that, so I will add a label there. Very simple. What is in the picture? So I can preview that it looks like that, and I don't need the last section. So it looks correct. I will try submitting. There's a verification, and submission looks okay. So I will go ahead and save this section and give a short instruction to the performer. I can type there, but I will just copy paste a text that I have made before. So it looks like that to the performer. Very short, simple instruction. I will save this and finish the job there. Now I need to sort of set up quality control and pricing. So this is a very simple task. I'm paying 1 cent, and I actually want to show, make people do 10 images for 1 cent. Doesn't have adult content, and because this is a very simple project, I will only filter that my judges need to have English as their language, because my interface is in English. Olga mentioned lots of ways to do quality control. I will pull up some, like for instance, I have control task. I will make sure that I only allow people to have wrong control task, like 1 and 2 control task. Then I can do actions like I can suspend people for day, and I just say it's control task. Yes.
What is a control response?
So a control response is the answer to a task that you already know the answer to. So I can go back to the data set, like for this one.
Yeah.
I have a control answer that says others. So that means answer for this picture should be others. And I sort of judge the quality of my performer based on whether they get the answer on these questions correct or wrong. If they're wrong, then they're not a very good judge.
I got it. So you have actually pictures where you already know the value or the result.
Yeah.
You just take it as a blueprint to check if the people are just still working or just doing something. Okay.
Yep. So it's a good measure of usually overall quality of your task and label that you're getting. There are a bunch of other things you can do to filter bots. One of them is like fast response. So you can limit the number somebody do responses that is like fast. For this task, I'm just setting it as 15 seconds. If they do this, I will suspend them because they're probably not looking at the picture before judging. Then I will just set an overlap of 3. That means one picture will be judged by 3 performers, and then I will aggregate the result later on. And it's a simple task, so I reduce the time, and I'm almost done setting things up. I will just go ahead and upload my task. So I'm specifying that I want to show one control task, and the other 9 will be the tasks that people do. I'm adding this. And I will just go ahead and start this.
Can we see how many people are right now available to perform the tasks?
Yes, so right now there are almost 6,000 people accessible online right now and can access this task. And I can see that it's already running. Now there are things like I can preview the task. So this is how the task looks like. I did specify the size of the task, but this is how it appears on desktop. That is a bit bigger. Not a big problem there. So the task is now live, it's running. I will refresh this, and when I refresh this, I can already see that there are already 18 people taking the assignments as we're talking now. I can refresh this one more time to see if anyone is done. So one person is done with the task. I will go ahead and show you how it looks like. So this is a dog. It's a cat. It's a cat. It's a cat. It's a dog. I can see that our judges are doing relatively fine with deciding whether it's a cat or a dog. Should be a dog. It's a cat. So they're not bad at this. So I can go back to the task and see that it's actually almost done. While I'm at that, I can show you the statistics as to what's happening here. So this is the control task. So this is honestly the first time I'm seeing this, like that it's 100%. So everyone is getting the control task correct. I'm not joking here. This is the first time I've seeing like quality of 1. It'll probably drop a bit, but this says the correct percentage on control tasks on the overall pool. Wow, I don't know, it's my lucky day. I've never seen this ever before. So I can see that it's almost done there. So essentially, this is, I guess, almost everything that I can show you for the demo. So when it's done, I will get back to that. We have different models to aggregate results, as Olga mentioned before. So when this is done, I can run an aggregation, but I can show a sample how it looks like. So it will look something like that, where you have the task, which is the link of the images, then the output that we are seeing that the model thinks should be, and what is the confidence level of the model for this answer. So this is how do we calculate that? We are using David-Skin model. So this is just aggregating based on the answer of the judges based on the control task. So if a judge that is good with control tasks answers that it's a cat, the model is more confident as compared to somebody else who's not as good with answering the control task. I will get back there just to refresh the page and see if we are done. We are actually done. So I can show the statistics here that it costed us 36 cents to do that. The pool, the entire set was 120 images. It was done in 3 minutes, 14 seconds. But it doesn't mean like when we have, let's say, 12,000 images, then it'll be 100 times longer. No, and because simply this is a function of how many performers we can have in parallel working on the task, and that is a function of the number of your tasks. So I think that should be all that I have for the short demo. So I'm a bit over 12 minutes, but 120 images, 36 cents, 3 minutes, and so on. And I promised something I forgot. Let's check the quality. 97%. So not 100, but almost there.
Thank you so much, Rosmi. That was great. I have, Stefan, if we have a couple of more minutes for...
Sure, we have time. I was just looking at the numbers for dashboard was just cool because you get all the things you probably need when you're running a project. This was interesting. So basically just, it was a rough number, but it was 1 cent per image, right? So this is.
It was 1 cent for 10 images. One of them being control task, so 1 divided by 9, somewhere there. 0 point. Is there a unit beyond cent? So
okay.
1/9 of a cent.
Awesome. I'm thinking of me doing the job for, and it would kill me for the time. So just seeing the speed of using a crowd to just solve a task. That was quite impressive. I also liked one of the slides Olga just showed before, when she was talking about taking control of the quality, right? This is, of course, always a huge problem. And I think we can have some talks when everything is completed about the quality things and unsupervised learning stuff and so on. What has changed? What's the purpose of that quality control? How does it affect models and so on? This was quite interesting for me. As it looks like so beautiful from a process point of view, right? You have a process, you don't have to care about thinking about how to control manipulation if you work with crowds. So you have to deal with a lot of issues like, again, it's a crowd, so people are just people. We have different personalities there as well. And I like the speed, just to say we can put up some projects, let it be done, and we can just wait for it to be completed. It sounds like a good option.
Yeah, thanks. If you don't mind, I'll proceed with some final slides to sum up with what we have seen.
Please.
Yeah, so thanks once again, Rosmi, for the demonstration. And the final, hopefully, what I was hoping to actually pass the idea that the data labeling should be treated as an integral part of the machine learning production. And this is not something far away or something from totally different industry. This is a core part of your AI process. Once again, remembering that you would need like such kind of labeling for all the steps of your production. And on the teaser of our meetup, we raised some questions like, will BERT or any other unsupervised models like kill data labeling? And I feel that I need to like share at least my ideas on that. And we actually believe that, well, the short answer is no. Actually, it's quite funny because the past 10 years, if you remember, I've been showing those constantly rising graphs of the usage of the crowdsourcing, and at every moment of time, we have been thinking, okay, to tomorrow everything will die, tomorrow everything will stop, but it is still growing and growing and growing. But in short, of course, we think that we cannot get away from the human data labeling anyway, because you would need mostly those models are like a perfect general purpose base, but you would need to fine tune your models for your particular applications. And here is where you would need the data labeling of specific domain. Secondly, as I have mentioned, any model, once it has been built, has to be properly validated and constantly controlled in the real production. This is one of, I would say, the major risks of the modern AI-driven world, is that there are so many models which are being deployed uncontrollably and nobody knows how they actually work in production. And this is something that we should pay attention to. And finally, yes, you need to always control it in production and retrain your models once obtaining new pieces of data. But at the same time, of course, the nature of the data labeling will be dynamically changing. First of all, I think that we can expect the increasing diversity of different labeling tasks, and usually we can expect that you would not need to collect 1 million of labels of one task type. Rather, you would need to collect thousands of labels per thousands of different tasks. And that's why universal and flexible tools would be more needed rather than a very specified ones related to a very specific domain, for example, only 3D point clouds computer vision or something like that. Secondly, as I have already mentioned, the tasks for human will constantly become more and more difficult. This is what we already observe. Like 10 years ago, the tasks for the labelers were much simpler than they are now. And that's why we should constantly invest into quality control and, what is more important, to smart targeting of tasks. I believe that on the platforms, there would be more and more experts, and the tasks itself, they will be probably more expensive. It's quite easy to distinguish cat and dog, but if you're speaking about more the tasks related requiring higher expertise, of course you would need a more highly paid experts, and it would be moving towards this direction, definitely. And finally, hopefully we managed to illustrate you that in the same way as you would not outsource your core expertise in machine learning, being a specialist in AI, you would not want to outsource the expertise in data labeling. You should not treat it as some black box, and you should not approach it like, just bring me the data set, I'll do something about it. You need to understand how it works and invest into increasing the effectiveness of this production. So finally, I'd like to say that we are actually taking, the team of Toloka is taking this very serious. We have invented the name of the crowd science, is actually meaning that the science of cooking the crowd correctly and the science of using the power of these millions of people in the correct, the wisdom of millions of people in correct and effective ways. And that's why we are investing a lot into the research on these topics. We are participating in a major conferences, like in December, we were in the NeoRIPS processing our own workshop. The next will be at a very large databases conference in Copenhagen this year. And we are providing this series of seminars on the topic of the crowdsourcing. So if you are interested to go deeper into this topic, we would be happy to see you joining our also meetups. And so please, let's keep in touch if you find this topic interesting for yourself, and if you liked the demo of Rosmi and would like to try Toloka platform by yourself, please feel free to fill in a short form and get the promo code for $10, which you probably already understand that for $10 you can collect quite a lot of cats and dogs or some other more useful data for your tasks. Thank you so much. I'm done with my part.
Thank you, Olga. Of course, we have questions, as you could imagine. One thing to also organizational, you showed what kind of code, promo code, and so on. This presentation will be available for all audience today afterwards, right?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Thank you. So let's go back to the questions. I see we have some questions in the Q&A. We have some questions in the chat. I just try to summarize it for a second. Looking at the kind of questions we have, one thing, and I invite Nadim to speak up. I see we have two people actually talking about how you work with healthcare issues, right? Healthcare medical things. Nadim, do you like to raise your question?
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Very interesting presentation. Thank you very much. So I work in the medical field, and I'm interested in knowing about data labeling of radio images, X-ray images. So do you have experts, Toloka experts who are specialized in these kinds of field? Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a very good question. And actually, right now we are starting the projects aimed to acquire more specialists in the field of healthcare among our crowd. Namely, we are now developing a partnership with some medical universities to attract students of the higher grades to the platform. So I hopefully within several months we will already I would be able to tell you that yes, we do have the crowd of specialists in the medical topics. We would be happy to actually discuss it with you further if you're interested in that topic, because we are right now on the way of solving this part.
Sure.
Thanks, Nadim, for the question. I think Peter also joined us. So Peter was also on the show last time when we discussed basically the same issue with pharma and healthcare again. Peter, what is your question?
So my question goes more towards textual medical information. The background is Switzerland is right now receiving an electronic health record, which will basically be a collection of PDFs, and there will be a bunch of PDFs someday when it gets off the ground, and the doctors won't certainly open 80, 100 PDFs and read through them. So we are aiming to have NLP procedures to analyze the text and present it on a dashboard. And for that, of course, we need the training data and the training labeling. Do you have some practical experiences with written medical records? And there comes an additional challenge, actually. This appears to be more or less different by hospital. So it's not one single solution. So I would assume there's a basic training, and you would need to adopt that to the specific needs of hospitals or certain medical communities.
Well, thanks very much for the question. I think that there are several parts to be discussed. First of all, in general, if we come away from the medical specifics, the task of doing something about the PDFs is quite standard, and we have lots of insurance companies, for example, somehow transforming the data using Toloka from the printed documents to online or something like that. This is the first part, so this can be done definitely. Second part is related to the data privacy and the things that if we speak about medical documents especially, there should be this technique. It's very interesting actually, which is quite often applied when requesters are sending such specific and sensitive data to Toloka, is the decomposition, because the whole document is of course a sensitive information, but if you decompose it up to separate words or even separate letters or something like that, this is not anymore a like piece of meaningful information, and why each single performer gets one single word or something like that, and the requester on his or her side then merges back all the data on their side. That's how it can be made like safe from the terms of the privacy issues and all that stuff. And thirdly, if these tasks would require some medical experience, here I think it's the same answer as I given previously. Within several months, we hopefully would be ready to say that we have some crowd of people with medical expertise. We will need to see related to their languages they are speaking. But in general, what you're describing is quite, well, if we decompose it into several steps, each separate step looks like a standard task for the crowdsourcing platform.
That's quite interesting. So what, Peter, you can maybe stay a little bit longer as well as like last time, or you can dig deeper into that issue. I think it's interesting to see it's about quite tasks in specific industries, like we heard from the healthcare industries with changes in Switzerland, especially in this case, which might be subject to that kind of crowdsourcing approach. So I have a few more questions here from Pedro. Pedro would just like to look you up. Hi, here you are. Pedro, would you like to just ask your question directly?
Sure. Hello, thank you for the presentation. I was wondering if you could give us some tips towards developing guidelines, rating guidelines for tasks that have ambiguity. So if you take, for instance, an NLP task, often some percentage of examples have a clear answer, but at some point in time, you have 2, 3, 4% of examples that people disagree on. And I was kind of wondering if you, in your experience, you have sort of tips for how to incrementally improve those tasks, and what helps and what doesn't help in your opinion. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. It sounds like you are an experienced user of the crowdsourcing, so the question is very precise. I hope that Rosmi would add something. I would start with maybe my observations are too trivial. We usually recommend, as you've mentioned, to do it incrementally. Like you set up a smaller pool, you collect the feedback, you analyze the systematic mistakes or something. You see where there was misunderstanding, then you just add some training tasks. To my experience, the most effective tool is showing the training tasks. When you inject a training task where the correct answer is already shown to the performer and explained, there is a tool for writing a command, like here the correct answer is something because la la la. And if when a person sees several such training examples, they can learn faster. And so you can use those ambiguity cases to use them as the training examples, like the inactive learning, you do the same. And you show them to people, and then they get the logic of border cases better. I don't know, Rosmi, do you have more practical experience of the last years? So
I think I would recommend to consider a few steps. For instance, I'm sure this is available in most crowdsourcing platforms, that you can sort of make a dynamic overlap. So sometimes, I mean, you want to understand what is the root cause of this ambiguity? Is it really that there is a different class that you have in your data set, or it's just that the judges are confused? So you can do something like, in my example, I use an overlap of 3, but you can do something like, you can increase this overlap, have more judges to do the task if the model is not as confident. So our example was very simple because it's cats and dogs, but sometimes you do get instances where the confidence of the level is just 50%. In that cases, you may want to add more judges to look at this. or you may want to just understand, perhaps in your data set, there is a different class where judges should answer that they're not sure, and then you build a separate pipeline to deal with this because the nature of the data is somehow different. Hoping that helps.
Thanks a lot, Rosmi. I just saw you were also typing in the answer in the Q&A section. Awesome. So yeah, you will find the answers. I think that's perfect. Vasily also had a question. Do you like to raise your question here, Vasily?
I think Vasily mentioned that his mic doesn't work. Maybe.
Oh, what a pity. Oh, sorry. No worries, Vasily. I can ask the questions myself, of course. I just found it helpful if you like to do that. Do you use active learning to reduce the number of required annotations? If yes, which query strategy?
Okay, thank you very much for the good question. Right now, we do not have the models for active learning already inside the platform. So most of our requesters, they use, like, we have a very rich API. So usually the majority of requesters, they use some active learning approach on their side, and they decide which tasks to send to human labeling and which to not. However, we are most probably we would be developing into this direction within this year and to implementing more like machine learning based solutions into the platform.
Thank you, Olga. And the last questions from the audience. I will have some one question as well. Oh, sorry, Vasily has one additional question. Let's before we answer the last question here. Do you predict how many annotations you would need at minimum to reach the desired quality?
Yeah, exactly. This is what we have, and this is what Rosmi has mentioned. We have a tool inside Toloka when we call it dynamic overlap, when you set like, okay, ask as many people as needed in order to reach the accuracy of 99%, for example. And that's the system would automatically like predict the expected quality level regarding the calculated experience and trustworthiness of every separate expert who has already participated in the voting, and would decide whether to ask the next person or not.
Awesome. Cool stuff.
And this is actually, there are two strategies mixed together because at the same time, usually the requesters, they want to reach the expected level of quality, of accuracy, and at the same time, they want to stay within the fixed budget. So usually once you combine this, what Toloka provides is that you ask as many people as possible and stay within the same pricing. So if you had to ask fewer number of people because they were so highly trusted and etc., they just get paid more. And that at the same time allows the requester to stay within the budget and the performer to be motivated with higher pricing for the higher quality.
Cool, thank you very much. So this is the last question regarding understanding a little bit of Toloka in the market space, right? This is more like if you compare what you're doing at Toloka with other crowdsourcing platforms like Amazon Turk, CrowdSpring. How would you position yourself? How you differentiate from all these other platforms?
Yeah, thank you for the question. In general, of course, we have been looking at the Amazon Mechanical Turk for a long time, even initially when we understood that we need crowdsourcing at Yandex. We could not use it for several reasons. The major was first, the non-availability of the majority of the countries, which we actually needed. And Toloka has a much broader geography of performers than the Mechanical Turk. And secondly, we have much richer set of tools for the quality control than Mechanical Turk does. And then the majority of the platforms actually do.
Cool, thank you. I think that was the answer to that question. Brings me to my last part. I would just like to share for a second my screen with you guys. This was one of the posts I did on LinkedIn today, and it was just referring to Timnit Gebru. Probably many people have heard of her. She was in charge of ethics at Google. And this was about the language problem of too large data sets. And the problem of bringing in that kind of racism stuff and so on. This refers to using unsupervised learning methods, just collecting data from broad internet sources. So this is available. You can check on my LinkedIn account. So there is a link on that as well. If you'd like to read the paper, it's probably just one pretty good one to dig a little bit deeper into the data discussion, what we need, and think about why data control, data labeling makes so much sense in ways, right? To summarize just the paper for a second, so this is more like, it's like zeitgeist, yeah? So people's thinking, people's value goes, of course, into documents on the internet. If you just pick that as a source for building models, you get all the same bias just built into the model some ways. So my question to you, and I think it was a little bit for what you mentioned with BERT before as well. How do you see the role of data labeling in today's AI business world?
Well, indeed, what you're mentioning is quite a fundamental, I think, characteristic of the modern world. It's actually, we are all surrounded by AI, and the AI is all trained by like available data on the internet. And at some moment, it becomes like a little bit even thrilling, like who are the sources which are training the models which are making decisions around us. And that's why actually I think that the role of a more fine-tuned data labeling will be only increasing. There are so many like use cases, I'm sure you've all heard about them, like for example, voice assistants who are trained on open internet discussions. Yes, they come up to to being really, I don't know, awful from the moral point of view. So we need to add something specific here. We cannot rely only on open available data on the internet. We need to pay attention on what we're training our models. And that's why I'm pretty sure that the task of data labeling will not go away in the nearest future.
Yeah. One of the things I learned from one of the last sessions about model ops was, I think you have a different terms, right? So there are many terms for model ops.
There are so many terms, yeah. Some of them, the guys from Google call it the data excellence. Some call it data ops. So this is something that we call the crowd science, pretty much part of the same concept, yes.
Interesting. So one of the main theses I just took with me as a learning was, yeah, and of course, you train a model not only one time. It's a process type of thing, yes. So everyone who just thinks it's done, if it's done, it's just, yeah, funny. Okay, this will end sometime. This model will run out of time. It's getting older, yes. Yeah. So part of using that kind of crowd sourcing could be also to take care of that process of continuously training models, right?
Exactly. And this is what I've been pointing on, that we really need to constantly control of how it is working in production. Indeed.
Thank you. Nadim also, I think first me also answered it already, a technical question. Just JSON looks cool for coders probably. So is there a way to use easy templates, I would say, to sum it up in some ways? So is there a way to just drag and drop templates, or do you have ready-made models which we can just use just a little bit? Something like that possible?
Yeah, actually, there are some templates which are already very, very, very simple. And there will be more, of course. Our drag and drop interface is now under the development. Of course, we would be moving to it. But this is on the one hand, of course, you should not be like anybody should be able to like easily create an interface, but at the same time, what is important about Toloka is that if you need a really sophisticated one, you can do whatever you want using the JavaScript and the HTML. So there is also an opportunity for just complete flexibility here too.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting point, but you have a flexibility, as you say, to create an interface or...
That actually allows Toloka to be integrated into real production pipelines of different companies, so they can adjust it to their processes.
Yeah. You showed the marketing example from Walter Neuenschwander. Walter, I can give you the talking rights as well, if you like. You can just talk, say your question directly. Walter, okay. Would you like to talk or shall I read?
Yes, you hear me?
Yeah, welcome, Walter.
I'm just wondering whether it's possible to use that system also to do like a voting process or like for polling, because in these kind of environments, there's no correct or wrong answer. However, I am very impressed. I'm very impressed about the number of people actually being there in the system right now, being live and giving some answers. So this is a very good resource for just do some pollings or votings. You can do that as well?
Yeah, actually, we have the opportunity to do this as well, and we have some clients who are doing this, both in terms of some marketing research, and what is interesting in terms of some social sciences research, because there are lots of I don't know, experiments and something else in terms of scientific research in I don't know, economic behavior or something else being right now provided on the platform. In general, as you've mentioned, there are no like correct answers, but there are still methods to control the overall quality. For example, when you speak about this side-by-side comparison, you cannot catch the person that he or she liked what should not have been liked or something like that. But there are mathematical models, for example, the model of Bradley and Terry, and we are using it, which can aggregate the results and remove the systematic biases from the signals collected by the crowd. And it is quite usually used by our requesters too.
Okay, also, thanks a lot.
Yeah, and also I would say that it's anyway a really great source to get quick feedback and some insights, because you can set up this side-by-side or even just an I don't know, survey or something, and ask people in a free form to provide you with the comments. And people are really sharing their thoughts on what they see, and this really provides with a great insights on the product.
Yeah, I think it's really a nice opportunity for that kind of even UI questions sometimes. Yes.
Yeah.
For a quick poll, that's a nice one. Thanks, Walter, for just bringing up a question. It's a good one as well. So basically, we are. I would say we are at the end. Thanks. I know it's really late time on your side. It's to as I had, so it's 10 p.m. So I would be completely exhausted. Just, oh my gosh, what was that for a day? Thanks again.
Speaking with the US.
Okay. That's more challenging indeed. So thanks again for all of you just for being willing to share all that knowledge and expertise. I think it was just an awesome insight into what is possible. Many things I actually didn't know that it could be done by using that kind of approach. Many things I personally will think about how to use that. So that was quite helpful. For any people who would like to start a project, is there some kind of help in the beginning? So
yes, of course. We will share the materials, and there will be all the contacts, and we would be happy to help you on the way of setting up the processes.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I'm not alone. Fantastic. Thank you. So again, everyone, just again, thank you for just joining us today. It was awesome to have you here as an audience. Again, thank you for all the fantastic questions. Like always, I have to say, I'm always wondering about what kind of peeps are just participating. That's awesome. You might know that we have another session tomorrow, which will be about IoT and how to measure real-time data and at speed and at myriad of time of things. And I get a lot of thank yous on the chat. You might see that. I hope you do that because people are just lucky with what you've done. Thank you again and have a nice evening, night, or whatever time it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.